Well, hello and good afternoon to you. Thank you for watching this video where we are going to cover Jeremiah chapters 21 through 29. And as we've looked at previous portions of the book of Jeremiah in the past, we come to this portion as we're drawing near to the middle. And these 8 or 9 chapters, we can call a judgment upon specific kings and leaders. And it breaks down into 5 portions. And the first of them we can call the condemnation of kings and false prophets in Judah and Jerusalem. And in this portion, there's going to be some specific condemnation of the city itself. The first part of chapter 21, these priests come to Jeremiah and ask for a word from the Lord. And Jeremiah says, the city is going to be destroyed. And then Jeremiah is going to get into some specific messages to the house of David, and then to King Zedekiah, and then to Shallum, which is Jehoahaz, and then finally to Jehoiakim and his son, who's going to be referred to as Coniah in Jeremiah chapter 2, but elsewhere he is known as Jehoiakim, which is very similar to his father Jehoiakim, so it can be a little bit confusing. But and then chapter 23 is going to begin after condemning these unjust and unfaithful kings. God promises, I'm going to send a faithful king, and he refers to it as the righteous branch of David, who will establish and rule a kingdom that is just and fair. And so we can look forward to that. And then in the second portion of chapter 23, Jeremiah condemns the false prophets that were in Jerusalem at that time, saying that everything's going to be great. There's going to be peace. Nebuchadnezzar's not going to come and destroy us. So their message was completely the opposite of what Jeremiah had been proclaiming for years and years. The second section in this portion of judgment upon specific kings and leaders, Jeremiah, or the Lord through Jeremiah, promises to preserve those who are in Babylon. As we looked at in previous videos, there were 3 exiles or 3 deportations from the land of Israel over to Babylon, one in 605, one in 597, and then the final one in 586. And God says those who were taken out of the land of Judah and taken over to Babylon, those are going to be the ones who survive. They are going to be the ones who will be blessed and ultimately sent back to the land of Judah and restored in the future. But those who remain in Judah and those who run away and try and flee to Egypt, they are the ones who will suffer. They are the ones who will experience the sword, the famine, and pestilence that were spoken of in the previous portion of Jeremiah. So he promises to preserve those in Babylon. He's going to do it with an illustration of good figs and bad figs, which is going to be kind of the title in your chapter in your English Bible. Then in chapter 25, and you can star this chapter because it's a very, very important chapter in the Old Testament, because Jeremiah is going to prophesy that the Babylonian exile, the captivity, is going to last for 70 years. And this prophecy is going to be mentioned by Daniel in Daniel chapter 9, verses 1 and 2. It's also going to be mentioned in Ezra chapter 1, verse 1, that it is on the hearts and minds of other Old Testament authors, and the people understood finally, after they were taken into exile, that they were going to be there for 70 years. So it's a very important chapter, and ultimately God is saying that his wrath is going to come upon Judah through the Babylonians, but then ultimately God is going to bring his wrath upon the Babylonians and the other nations as well. So God is going to use Babylon, but then he's going to judge Babylon as well. Then in chapter 26, we have a little bit of an interlude, and we see a little bit of the personal life of Jeremiah, where we see this kind of this courtroom scene where Jeremiah is accused of speaking against the city of Jerusalem, which he definitely was. But it's this trial that he stands before the leaders, and he's condemned to death and then rescued, and a whole lot of similarities to the trials of Jesus and the condemnation that Jesus receives. But Jeremiah is ultimately going to be delivered and rescued from this death sentence, and he's going to continue his prophetic ministry. Then chapters 27, 28, and 29 are going to make up 3 other prophecies, each of them at a different time. And it's really going to be addressing the false prophets who continue to prophesy and say everything is going to be fine. Jeremiah is saying, no, nothing is going to be fine. Everything is going to be destroyed. And so the emphasis is that Judah and Jerusalem should accept the yoke of King Nebuchadnezzar to be upon them. And again, there's another object lesson where God tells Jeremiah to go and make a yoke and put it upon his shoulders and go and make these prophecies against Jerusalem, that this yoke is going to be placed upon them. And that happens in 597. And then 4 years later in chapter 28, this false prophet Hananiah makes this prophecy that yoke is going to be broken. So you can tell it was very fresh upon the minds of the people, where 4 years later they're still talking about Jeremiah's prophecy. And Jeremiah says, no, this yoke is going to be broken and God's going to deliver us. And Jeremiah says, well, we'll know who is the real prophet by what happens. Either Jeremiah is going to be the true prophet, or Hananiah is going to be the true prophet, depending upon what comes about. And ultimately, spoiler alert, Hananiah is going to be outed as the false prophet, and he's going to be judged, and his life is going to be taken. Then Jeremiah chapter 29 is going to be another really important chapter, and a chapter that you might be familiar with because verse 11 is always found on Christian greeting cards and so many other places. But chapter 29 is a letter from Jeremiah to the exiles, and it's a dated letter, so it's in 597, right after the second exile. And Jeremiah is telling the people there in Babylon, get comfortable. Even though the false prophets are saying you're going to be returning home any day now, and you're going to return home soon, that the word from Yahweh is that we are going to be in Babylon for 70 years. So get comfortable, seek the good of the city, seek the good of the people and the nation that we are in, and marry and give your daughters in marriage and do these things, because we're going to be here for a while. And then after 70 years, the Lord is going to restore the people of Judah in the land. And that's the message of Jeremiah 29, a little bit different than the typical, like, oh, everything's going to be great and warm and fuzzy. It's actually, no, things are going to be hard for 70 years. So keeping that in mind when you see that verse. So this is that larger portion, as we've talked about, chapter 21 through 29. And in the future videos, we'll look at the meat and the really important part of Jeremiah's overall book and prophecy, chapters 30 through 33. And we'll see you for that video in the future. But may the Lord bless your study of chapters 21 to 29 this week. Thanks for watching this video from Ambassador Bible Fellowship. We exist to glorify God by multiplying disciples, leaders, and churches who believe the gospel, grow in Christ, and go to the lost. If you would like more resources on the Bible, theology, and church history, you can hit the subscribe button below or visit our website at ambassadorbiblefellowship.org.